Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And you know, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. Right. What's up, everybody? We are live. I got a power-packed episode for you. It's going to get weird, I'm sure, but in the best way. And if you're here, you're ahead of the curve. You're ahead of your own time. Who knows? You might even be jumping around in it. It's hard to say at this point. Nobody really can say. But before we get started, I just want to shout out to our friends at Content Safe. They're distributing this stuff all over the internet. Try and support smaller and different technologies where you can. And yeah, we're still streaming on YouTube, but we're on Rockfin. Check us out on Rockfin. Growing pretty fast over there. Really like Rockfin. And of course, the podcast feed as well. Leave us a review. Put us a comment down there. Say something. Do a little sharing. Anything you can do really helps. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on a Tuesday night, 9 p.m. I'm your host. My name is Owen. I go by Bootsy Greenwood. That's my stripper name. So if you're looking for a little late night party, holler at your boy. But yeah, Blue Collar Mystics here. This show, if you're not familiar, we are talking about the mysteries of human consciousness, but trying to put them in a practical framework that's usable, easy to understand. Of course, there's a lot. We can explore these ideas and concepts truly into infinity and even further. But as much as is humanly possible, we want to consolidate what we're learning and make it shareable and usable. That's kind of the goal here. And I have assembled four horsemen of the apocalypse, or maybe the awakening. I don't know. And we're going to just chop it up tonight and talk about what's going on, what is coming up with everybody, what people are working on, and get into some of these interesting topics. I think we'll talk a little bit about time, the illusion of time, as Derek defines it, I think very well and concisely, but clearly, and just what it means to be existing in the now and all of this jargon that we hear so much. Maybe you could chime in, Derek.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And happy to be here, Owen, too.
Dude.
It's always a blast with everybody here. Yeah. We've all heard before, time doesn't really exist anyway. It's a way for us to, delineate, segments of our perception, and because it's all false. And I'll tell you too, once we do realize that and just wake up to the fact that it is false, an illusion, it's not a thing, well, then you're not limited by it. So then you can perceive around and everywhere else. So it's just one of those factors in life that just really limit us, thinking that, well, that's past, we can't affect it because it's already happened. No, that's not a limitation. We can affect the past, air quotes here as well, as the future. So it's just a tough thing to talk about, of course, because we're limited in our English language, especially just on the terminology we have. So we have to kind of use analogies and try to wrap our heads around it and talk about these things.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to try and present it. That makes the most sense. Yeah, and man, thank you for being here. It's awesome. I'm really excited to have Bill as well. Bill, many of you may know him from past streams in the 13 Questions podcast as well. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, Owen, thanks for having me.
Dude, always. And hugely happy to introduce my friend Ben, the Star Pilgrim, first time on the show.
Yeah, thanks.
It's gonna be fun.
Thanks for being here, man. It's awesome. Yeah, we could get into a lot of pretty crazy shit.
Good.
I mean, and I'm down. I'm down for that. I'm down for, whatever. With Ben, he also is someone I think that speaks really a clear language in all this woo-woo stuff that we kind of and makes it accessible. Even for me, for whatever reason, maybe it was a year or two ago. I can't remember how long ago. It was a couple of years ago, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to Ben. I had a suspicion. I was like, because we were following each other on Instagram, and I reached out to him because I kept having sleep paralysis, and I needed to get rid of that. It was just at that time, especially, man, it was very distracting and scary. It's scary if anybody out there has ever struggled with it. You wake up and if you don't know what it is, and you can barely breathe, you can't scream, your body's asleep, or so you think, but your mind's awake, or maybe you're in a dream state still. I don't know. I've had a lot of weird experiences with it, but for some reason I was inspired to reach out to Ben and talk to him about it. And we worked on this particular room in my dad's house, and kind of what you said made the most sense to me as far as like an energy or a spirit or something. Do you remember what you said?
Well, I mean, I remember we did that clearing, and it's how you wanted to look at it, so to speak. A lot of people will assign that to an entity in their room, and they may see one, right? But for me, when I'm dealing with that kind of stuff, it's easier to see it as an energy and just a pile of energy rather than something taking form and having control of the situation.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense to me when you described it that way, because I think you used an analogy because it was a rather new house, and I think probably an older place, it would make sense that more things would kind of collect the older something is. And so you said like some dude might have been in there and whacked his thumb with a hammer and just been like, damn it,
Right.
And then that just draws more of that like energy toward it whenever anything else. Like I go in there and hit my head on, on a cabinet or something, and and just continue to add to that and continue to add to that.
Right.
Something like that could happen. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that could happen.
Every kind of outburst of negative energy sort of attracts to itself if it's not cleaned up, properly or whatever. Properly, but if you just let it pile up, it can start to become its own thing.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I feel like those two things are very observable. Like the angry person who's just, looking for a fight. He finds one, like whatever that is, you see those things happen, and those sort of, whatever, if they're vibrations, I guess everything kind of is, but whatever those things are, they just draw.
You've just got that dust cloud of bad vibes trailing behind you, and kind of picking up stuff as it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, that made a lot of sense to me because, people talk about ghosts. We could talk about all aliens. We could talk about all of these different ideas or forms, pendulums. I love that term, but
I started using ghost as just sort of an all-encompassing term at this point, whether it's aliens or Bigfoot or your dead grandma, it's all ghosts, just makes it easier.
Yeah. I like
that. I was gonna say that makes sense, Ben, because I do too. I communicate and do different things as well. So I just call entities, same thing, energy. Yeah. And you can modify, like it was also Ben was saying about, and you, Owen, about feeling that energy in the environment. I think he says the house. You don't have to view it as an entity. You can kind of zoom out, like Ben's talking about, and see this energy. Then you can really work with it a little bit more too. So really, it's your perspective and intention on it has an effect too.
Yeah, it was pretty impactful doing that, because as soon as we did that clearing, I was able to sleep in that room. I didn't have any more. But one thing also that was really notable and cool that I learned was, because this is what actually, this was the thing that got me, because it kept happening, right? It kept happening in there. And I think my sister had even said something at one time, like, there's something weird about that room. But the final straw was when my brother moved down there, and he was living in that space. And he was like, man, there's something about that room. And as soon as he said that, I was like, damn it, I've got to do something, right? But ever since that happened, and what we wound up doing was I put a plant down there, because that was another thing that you had said.
Mm-hmm.
Like when that goes away, then you need
Right.
to recharge it.
Yeah, you have an open space in the room, so fill it back up with love, and go from there. Yeah. I think I suggested a dance party, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Recharge it with good vibes.
I don't know how much of this I put up, but I'm ex-military as well, so Army, and they used to take me around and put me in. I was in Germany for years, to not so good places there, some of the Nazi stuff, to feel the energies in the environment too. Those things, and I know we started off saying time's not a thing, and it's not. You can pick up in the past as well those things, and depending how, air quotes again, energy sensitive you are, and we're all energy sensitive, every one of us, to different degrees, of course. But those things can be picked up. I had years of getting drugged around in those places to feel the heavy, stagnant energies, I called it, kind of a lot of the time. Yeah, and those can happen all over the place. They can all be cleared.
And talking to it about place in general, like that, whether it's a house or a landscape or battlefield or whatever, that it has memory, right? Is another way to look at that. Whether it was the memory of everything in that room that was causing sleep paralysis, or it was your paralysis demon, whatever you want to call it. It's a vibration that is just in the house, because of in the house or in the place, I guess.
That kind of reminds me of how water carries memory.
Exactly. Yeah.
Except it's air and a spot, like a location. That's different. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll also tell you, one thing I realized when I'd go to different locations to perceive, as I put it, the more I'll say the wider understanding, and the more you let your imagination go, the more frequencies you hit, the more input you can get as well. And imagination is real. Everybody here knows that. That's not a make-believe thing. No, as you just let go, then again, we don't have words for this, but you can tune in more channels, more stuff comes. At least that's how I found out as well, opening up to realizing. Of course, knowing how to armor yourself as well, so you don't just open up to everything. I mean, that's a whole other topic. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, I think that's something interesting to talk about. I'd be happy to lean into that for a minute, because people get excited. They hear about something on the internet. They're like, I want to change my life. I'm going to do the 2-cup method or whatever. Insert fill in the blank, right? And then they just do it, right? And it's like, whoa. Maybe
also known as inviting chaos into your life.
Right.
Sure. I mean, I can expand a little bit, and someone else doesn't want. I do sessions here, and for those that don't know, and I'm not the only one. I can perceive what's called the biofield or auras. I just say energies, because it's not limited to that. Again, we can all do that to one degree, and it can be enhanced. But when I do that, and I have an in-person session here, and let's say somebody's going through the mindset of etherically or metaphysically protecting themselves from the ghosts and the goblins out there. And I'm just making fun of this real quickly. What I see is their biofield become less cohesive and a little bit more tightened. But if I can get that person to just change their mindset and wording and think, wait, I don't need to be protected coming from a place of fear. I'm armored. Just swapping those words, that feeling behind it and the intention affects your aura. And then it strengthens. And then long story short, you get to choose and own your frequency. So let's say there's bad guys floating around out there, and then there's all kinds of stuff out there. They're on a different channel than you. And I've something I've learned just by getting somebody to change their thoughts, thinking, well, wait, I don't need to be protected and from, this, that, and the other. I'm armored. And then you can talk about different things like sacred geometry or platonic solid shapes and stuff like that. But that's just some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years working with energy.
Mm-hmm. Armoring up and calling in your team, right?
Yep,
if you think you need it. So
sure. Yeah. And it's just that play of words, really. Somebody walking in and saying, I'm all protected. I'm like, no, I can see. And the ones that come in here know that I can see, again, what's called biofield, where it's just hazy energies. And I don't have words for it, but cohesive. It's a stronger more when they come at it from an armoring. Again, a state of feeling rather than a state of fear makes all the difference in the world, because it's your intention, not what you say. And you can say whatever you want. It's your intention behind it, because words mean different things to different people.
Yeah, I think that's something really important to touch on too. Intention is a word that gets thrown around a lot. It's very hard to define, but it's really the key to all of this. And you can just pick it up if you're out on the street, it's like, and you're walking against a crowd and like that one person's like, I'm not going to move. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to walk, and then you get out of their way or vice versa. I mean, that's very tangibly experienced intention. That's only really one example, but like in lucid dream, whatever happens whenever you're like, all right, well, I'm going to fly. Like, I know I'm away, and you just do it. Like, it's not a thinking about, like, I don't think about moving my finger. Like, I don't think about, any movement that's really done with intent. Like, I don't think about going to I just go, right? Like, if you've ever been to, a party and somebody is getting sick, and people just can intuitively pick that up as they're on their way to the bathroom and just get out of their way, right? Or whatever. Like little things like that. You can actually see these things. It's observable. Intention, I don't know. I just think that's a really powerful word, because it's not the same as hoping or expecting or praying or, any of those, or faith or any of that. It's just a very matter of fact, automatic almost response. I don't know. Love to hear you guys explanations or expounding on the idea of intention, how you experience it.
Well, you kind of put it perfectly there with people intuiting, when somebody needs to rush through, or you see that guy on the sidewalk that's not going to move, in having that energetic protection, that armor, so to speak. If you're setting your intention so that nothing, is going to get you, and get you by just being somebody's bad mood, right? It's not necessarily like there's a bunch of stuff running around that's trying to bite you. I mean, depends on how you live your life, I guess. But, but just that guy who looks like he's not going to move. If you have the right intention and the right armor, he might get out of the way.
He'll move.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good.
I like what Derek said about without fear, and to me that would be I guess that would be like playing the hero card, like choosing to partake in the hero's journey. Whereas if you like approach something with fear, that's like kind of playing the victim card, right? So I was listening to a lot of Terence McKenna lately, and this idea came to mind when he was juxtaposing the two ideas of the divinity of the human being versus the fall of man from Eden. And like these, speaking of intentions, and I'll bring this back to armor in a second, but the victim mentality here would be kind of like the story of the fall from Eden, in that we're victims of something, right? And then the opposite being the divinity of the human being, which is we're all capable of doing miraculous things, right? So we're just recognizing that instead of playing the victim card is having more of a hero mentality, and heroes have armor, right? Heroes go and get stuff done. So it's better to think about having going out with gusto with armor, right, as opposed to approaching anything with fear, which would be under the victim category, which is I don't know, something that struck me. And yeah, I'm a big Terence McKenna fan now, I guess. I listened to it was like 4 hours over the weekend. Yeah.
Man, that's a good point. It's all frequency, of course. If you get, I know it's going to sound corny to some, probably not you guys, but love is, of course, a frequency, and that's one of the strongest ones, if not the strongest. So be in that state, and then any of those anger, the bad guy coming at you, kind of not bad guy, but just refusing to move. Love's a stronger frequency. It's all energies. I mean, you can definitely have an effect as long as you hold enough space. Yeah, he's gonna get out of your way. Not that it's competition, but you can affect reality that way. So if you're going to a store and you're walking into a Walmart or something like that, and you understand you're armored and holding space in love, then let's say there's an angry guy. He's going to be down aisle 7 while you're in aisle 3, and then when you move, you're going to push. That's just a thing. That's literally how it goes. And I've played with that to crazy degrees in this reality, and it definitely is a thing. So it's a lot of fun to do too.
Mm-hmm. That is a fun part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You can figure it out.
Yeah. I got another quick example. So I was at a restaurant a couple years ago. Just to go quickly, there was a guy over there on one of the other booths, just getting into anger with his family kind of thing. So then I used love as, again, always the answer. So I put that love frequency around him and started kind of messing with him back here, distracting him sort of thing. He got out of that anger and everything toned down. He had no idea some crazy guy was 3 booths away, zapping love energy around him. And I make fun of it, but it's legit and it's all physics. It is a thing. Absolutely.
It is. Yeah. It's like electromagnetism, maybe polarity, all these, this is a premise that I've been working with and in writing around, but it's like, I guess we kind of all agree that love is the answer, right? Like the question is how to implement that, right? Like that's the conundrum,
right. Yeah.
That's the big mystery. Like, and I think, now it's kind of weird. I heard someone explaining, certain ideologies being kind of like pushed on people, and how it was almost used to override instinct with ideology, or to override intuition with ideology, which I thought was a very interesting way to explain that as a phenomenon. And I think we can kind of all intuitively feel certain things, and in our own body, our own control center, or like our machine, as Gurdjieff might call it, however we want to talk about that. But I would love to explore that and just understand and talk about sensations and how you guys experience intuition and how that relates to intention.
I mean, I think everybody's intuitive, of course, and you can call it gut instinct, spider senses, call it whatever you want. We all have them, and they can absolutely be enhanced. And I'm sure probably everybody here on the panel has their own experiences, probably many times over. And it can be just by your thoughts. So literally, what I've also learned over the years is it's not abilities being psychic or intuitive, it's understandings. So the more understandings you have, the more those, again, abilities turn on, or you access them. So we all have everything, but the more we realize that, and again, view things from a wider perspective or zoomed out, however you want to term that, then those other, again, abilities or understandings get enhanced. You start tuning in other frequencies, and you get things like, your intuitive abilities, or there's lots of terms for this stuff, but especially the energy sensitivity, which is why I'm such a big proponent of shungite, a mineral that helps you earth and ground. But that does get heightened as well. So you get energy sensitive, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But then you also have to know how to earth and ground and things like that, and not sit in energies. As Ben was talking early on, when you find something in a space or whatever, you can clear it. And you can have an effect on that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben, what do you?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Derek, you and I see and perceive energies very similarly. Bill's actually been telling me I should give you a call for a year and a half. But one thing with the intuition, and I mean it's such a loaded word, really. But just really trusting yourself and your instincts. For me, anyway, a lot of it started really getting tuned in just with observation. You know, I took a big step back and became the observer of everything I could. And that included how I was operating. And when, you know, you just you look over and glance at something, an object catches your eye, you're like, well, that's weird, just distracted or whatever. And you go on, but 20 minutes later, you actually need that thing. So that was, to me, that is that more instinctual part of the brain or mind, really, that's ahead of you, you know, subconscious, if you will, or it's that connection with higher self and divinity going, you're going to need that thing, you know? So now if something catches my eye, you know, if I'm working in a shop or I'm in my art studio or whatever, I grab it, put it in my pocket, and more than likely I'll need it pretty quick. So just really being able to observe how you operate, you know, and what catches your eye, the thought that has been repeating for a few days, you know, it's probably closer than you think.
That's a great description, man, because I also like how you were describing that. You grabbed it when you realized it, because we are usually limited, like we were talking about at the beginning, perceiving through these vehicles we call bodies, through time. You spiritually or metaphysically don't perceive with time because it's not a thing anyway. So you're just giving yourself a heads up, the little you or me or whoever's in the scenario, a way to figure that out here. So that's
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it too, you know. I mean, especially if I do a lot of projects and I'm building stuff a lot. And if it's a tool, it may just be the energy that you're creating by working on the project to begin with, and it's already happening farther out into quote unquote time than we can perceive. So the project itself kind of knows you're going to need that thing. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's, like I said, there's a lot of ways you can think about it. The house spirit is letting you know, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the 3D story we give it. It's all energies, and the more we open up to that, the more we hear on the playlist of frequencies. You know, again, like I said, there's so many ways to describe it, but be open to it, and it'll happen.
Yeah. Well, and whatever you are into, you know, I mean, if you've been working with your, you know, you live in a 100-year-old house and you cleared out all the ghosts when you moved in and you've been working with the house spirit, then that's probably who's telling you, you know. If that's not part of your life at all, you know, that's why I said there's a lot of ways to look at it, right? It's all, like you were saying, the story you're telling.
Yeah, I think I've been doing the Silva method a little bit a day. It's old. I love like old nerdy stuff, but it's mostly just learning to meditate and relax, you know, just like most anything else. But one of the things they talk about is how our bodies are separate, but our minds are connected. Basically, that's the metaphor that they go with. So, you know, anybody who's skeptical, right? Like you hear the word ghost or energy or entity or whatever, like we've all been skeptical, but we've all also seen things that are completely unexplainable. And for whatever reason, that just makes me curiouser and curiouser to understand whatever the hell that elusive thing is. I can't pin it down. But yeah, I guess I just want to say that.
Well, and that's, you know, the way I look at it is because when I first started becoming aware of all of this, it fascinated me like nothing ever had, right? And I'm a fairly adventurous dude. So I was like, I'm going surfing or hunting or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go check all of it out. And I don't know if I don't think that's possible, right? to get to the end. I've seen a few edges, I guess, but so yeah, it's what channel are you in? And that's how it'll show up. And it's going to mirror your energy, whatever it is. be it inner child healing or Bigfoot, you know.
Well, that's interesting. Actually, it's funny you bring up Bigfoot and or Sasquatch, because here in our Mystical store, we brought in a 7 foot tall-ish one here recently. The energy behind that thing is phenomenal, and everybody in person feels it. And no, there's no light, and you guys don't know, there's no light shining off of the thing. It's straight up the energy, and in this case, it's red cedar from here in the forest. Cedar, red, oh yeah. So that's a thing as well. And then with the Sasquatch and Bigfoot energy, and those are beings, by the way, for anybody listening to us, they're not, you know, wow, creatures running around the forest. They're brighter than us. They're way more connected. And I've seen them. I have my experiences with theirs. So is my dad. So I got endless stories there, especially being from the Northwest where I'm at, and the stories that walk in here on a weekly basis. But anyway, that's what's awesome that you mentioned that, Ben, too, because that's legit. That's a thing.
No, I've seen what most people would call Bigfoot. One time for a moment, in Northwest Montana.
Sure.
It's now an energy I interact with on a regular basis, you know, and I don't go anywhere near the Bigfoot stuff at all. And it's an ancient nature spirit I know as Oma, you know, so it's yeah. But I saw one before I was aware of any of the stuff, which was it's part of, I guess, the universe trying to, you know, snap me out of it.
I was similar thing.
Yeah.
Literally just running across the highway and on here in Washington State, another dozen people seeing it, like, what the hell? Yeah. So there's no doubting anything.
Yeah. Those are always interesting experiences. The area I was in is very energetically charged. I was way in the backcountry, and we'd had an experience as a group before the week before with something totally different and completely invisible, which was the weird. Everybody described it as invisible and enormous. So,
how big? Can you say?
It swooped like it was flying, whatever it was.
Okay, because I've got a lot of similar experiences up here in the Cascades and other forests and all that out there. I hike pretty far out.
So no, that's what I mean. Like it was a group experience, and then I saw what I saw the next week on my own, and it was you know, it was one of those things like, well, that's something I can't explain, and we're not going to talk about it. So I had a few of those experiences like successively over a series of years before I had an awakening experience, and it was just one of those things like, well, that's some weird shit. Okay, on with our day.
Sounds like you accepted it when I did that. So we had similar experiences. It might go on and on too. So I'm a retired correctional officer as well. So I used to be a prison guard here in Washington State. Pulled up to work one day. This was the middle of the, usually I'm a graveyard guy. I was coming in for an early shift. Long story short, a UFO right above what's called the big yard. With probably 300 inmates running around doing their thing. Nobody saw anything when I was pulling up there like that. And then I started perceiving it more, and then, you know, there's a whole other story past that. But that happens more and more as you open up to this stuff. And the best I can just quickly wrap my head around that for the listeners, it was at a frequency. So until you start realizing this stuff, realizing it is a thing, and again, I only have the word frequency to say, that frustrates me, but it is a frequency. Like my ear's ringing right now when I bring it up. Okay, and it's not that I'm all of a sudden going deaf or getting extra strong tinnitus symptoms. It's a frequency. So when I turn on my imagination, I get to see stuff floating over here. It all tunes in, and you feel those subtle energies, or just again the subtle energies, or sometimes not so subtle, around you. But yeah, so nobody saw that but me, as far as I could tell.
See, it's interesting. I have I guess we're calling them UAPs these days, but I lived in an area in Texas that I think probably 2009 maybe. It's the Stephenville Lights, if you want to check it out on YouTube. Yeah, like the town saw a bunch of stuff. I worked at a resort or hunting lodge, and a bunch of the guests there one evening saw a bunch of lights way out. But this thing like zoomed in on us one night when we were out varmint hunting, middle of the night, spotlights, bunch of rednecks with rifles. But this thing came in and lit us up to check us out. So it's interesting that you were saying like no one else saw it. There were others. There were 5 of us in the truck. 3 of the people had no idea it happened, but 2 of us were like, my boss actually said, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "Yep." And that was the last we talked about it.
I know the area you're talking about too. I'm actually a commercial deep sea diver as well, or I used to be. So I used to dive off oil rigs down in the Gulf of Mexico and off of Texas and all those areas. Same thing out on the oil rigs, craft, the UAPs. You know, I didn't see the ET waving from a window or anything, but the UAPs out there coming over, and a lot of people saw them in those cases.
Well, and the prevalence of them today, it just seems like it is part of the universe trying to shake people awake. You know, that there's more out there than we know of, right?
Oh yeah.
Or whatever. What's the German philosopher Herzenberg? I think that reality's not just stranger than you think; it's stranger than you can think.
I wish more people would talk about this, because I do just what's called sessions in here, just hundreds and hundreds of people over the months and whatnot. And the stories I get told when we're talking about UFOs, they'll say, "Derek, you won't believe it. I was with my mom downtown Seattle, wherever. Look outside, there's this craft," and you know, and they'll make a comment saying, you know, "Well, don't talk about it," because they'll mention somebody else in the car, and they'll say, "Yeah, I see it, but I don't want to." And just, I mean, hundreds of stories like that. It's
unbelievable. But you don't want to when you see one.
Oh, see, for me, I'm like, oh, it's totally different, but you know, out there. But
no, I mean, it was fascinating when it happened, but it's not like, you know, I mean, I was guiding at the lodge and was like, who am I gonna tell? You know,
I had started early in a big background in this stuff, so I get all perspectives. You know, it is. So that's also interesting, though. I mean, heck, like I said, the military used to drag me around in different places, and Hitler's little bunkers and different things like that, underground places. Just to
were you doing clearings at the time?
No, I was not. That was a couple years.
Because that was a good opportunity to like sweep up some bad vibes, man.
It is. I can't get all those stories; they take too long. But now I get into some of it. So my dad, he's retired. I didn't know this till he was in his 70s. He's mid-80s now, ex-NSA. So he did all kinds of things, and so a lot of that aspect. So a lot of family background. Again, there's countless stories on that one. But when I got in, I was pretty much just taken right aside, and I didn't know why, because I was a private nothing. Didn't know anything, but they knew that I was a perceiver, as I put it. So yeah, I was put in the Eagle's Nest in Birches Gardens, Germany. I don't know how many times. Hotels, underground little railroads, and they just see what I picked up on. And there's a lot. You can do that. There's a lot going on down there. So then once after doing that, 21, 22, 20, in those early 20s. And I was a correctional officer in my 30s and 40s. Well, the UFO thing was no big deal to me. I'd see them all the time. Countless stories on that. So it's more of like, come on, people, wake up. There's a craft. It was maybe 100 feet long. It wasn't really huge, but just sitting there. And then but they just don't wake up to it. So that was hard to wrap my head around. Not the craft, the humans around me not seeing anything about it. That's what blew my mind. I don't care if they're a bunch of ETs waving at me. They're saying, "Look at your fools." I'm like, I don't know. What's in the water? Something. So, yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think people just don't care about, like, basically disclosures, like it's on the mainstream news. It's like aliens, and people are like, whatever. You know, we just compartmentalize this. I guess really before the internet, there was not a whole lot of people talking about paranormal or psychedelic or psychological stuff around, other than Coast to Coast AM, maybe,
right.
And just a few pockets like that. But now that the internet's a thing, like, it's a very common thing to talk about. You know, you got these gurus that are communicating with whatever alien race this week or whatever, right? That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
that Galactic Federation channel is a weird one, man. Like it's a hard one to wrap your head around. But as real as everything else I've experienced, so
Yeah, I had
I
somebody
don't
walk
know.
in here, hand me a packet from the Galactic Federation you're talking about too, with a bunch of info, all kinds of goodies in there.
Yeah. Oh
Get my
man.
icon. Yeah.
And that's what I mean. The movie's getting real interesting these days. Right. So I'm still full on observer mode. I mean, I've got binoculars and popcorn and flashlights, and I'm looking to get a helmet because it's getting weird.
I need some floaties. I jumped in. Yeah.
The soup is deep.
Yeah.
I love that.
A lot of fun though. Yeah, it's not scary.
Mhm.
I mean, what am I going to fear? I mean, come on. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, for the most part, you only can be an observer. Like I heard Tim Dillon and Jessa Reed, their podcast, and one of the points that he made was that he's like, the person that I know that has the most influence still can't do really shit. You know what I mean? Like I think he named Joe Rogan. It's like, but if Joe Rogan like wanted to do X, Y, or Z, like what could he do? Is he gonna like? We have to kind of be I think this is the point where he was like the dude who put the horns on and ran into the White House. Like he's in the movie, right? You can go in the movie if you want, but you're always
that dude he's writing his own script, man, right? And that's a bold move,
right?
Wasn't he down in Brazil too? I saw a picture. Like I get a lot of news.
I don't know.
Secondhand, like I don't know, a lot of memes too. But I saw some guy with horns like painted up with the yellow and the green and the bull horns because of the craziness happening down there.
I mean, the world needs some berserkers again, right? I mean, seems like it anyway.
The world needs guillotines.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Like I'm serious. I struggle with this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole not to spin on the tinfoil hat too tight, but the whole cabal of lizard pedophiles, right? I'm like, okay, but what? I'm not doing anything about it tomorrow. I got to go to work. So I guess that's a weird, like, again, bold choice on how to play the game. Like karma will catch up with it if that's all really, I don't know if it is, but it's not my game, right? I got my shit to worry about. So
yeah, you can only juggle so much in this life.
Yeah. It's hard to get too close, right? Like, what do they say that you stare into the abyss and the abyss stares back, right? Like, and that's part of it. It's like running into the movie like that, bring
a flashlight, man. It's not that scary in there.
I was just really, I mean, jumped in those holes and climbed back out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It can be a good swim if you need one,
It's that understanding thing, because then your understanding expands, and then you get to do more down here. Again, what we're calling abilities. I don't know if you know, Ben, but this is I'm pointing out here at the wall, but there's a big rock and crystal source. So with some crazy pyramids in here, all sorts of stuff going on. And people that come in here aren't always into the metaphysical, the woo-woo stuff, as we might call it. So they're the everyday people, and the experiences they have in a place like this, just of positive energies and feeling things and hearing all of that, the metaphysical, because we're 10% physical, 90% metaphysical, and they get to experience that in a place like this. So it's cool to see them waking up and having those, again, what we call metaphysical experiences.
Right. Well, and those frequencies, the minerals and crystals are given off. I mean, you can't not feel it, right? I mean, you're affected by it whether you intend to be or not. So that's the way I found the stones to be.
Oh, 100%. And then again, what I was just loosely saying pyramids. So we have some couple of 6.5 foot tall copper pyramids. Those have been around since. They're legit, of course. They move orgone energy, and then so they can do all kinds of things, or help you do it, I should say. But those.
Well, have you seen the electro gardening? I just got turned on to this, man. People are putting copper antennas in their gardens these days.
Oh yeah,
growing 10 times as fast. So
okay, yeah.
Not even. I mean, real rudimentary stuff, not even making any kind of grid pattern or anything with it, or using the crystals. It's literally driving copper rods into your garden and seeing the effect. So really kind of getting it, dumbed down enough that everybody's going to try it.
Well, and I'll tell you on that, because that is legit. I know what you're talking about. We call them, sometimes we call it orgone devices out there. And I know you're saying copper rods in the ground. I make a version myself, but an add-on to that, because that moves what's called orgone energy, which is what helps the plant grow. Well, you can take a little notepad and write an intention on there, like, hey, love, or something like that.
Yeah.
Put it in the copper tube. Guess what frequency plate? Because I'm an organic beekeeper.
I mean, witchcraft works no matter what you do with it, right? But it's but this electro culture, the way that it's being presented is really digestible to the, Joe Blow gardener. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, I wrote down a little note here. I'm gonna look into what they're describing as that. Yeah, it works real well.
Yeah.
And we use shungite on our plants. They'll grow 10 times just by putting a little black rock called shungite. It's a mineral from Russia down there. It's all scientifically proven. I have studies all over our website. So for those that need to hear the science, I'm not saying you guys, but some people do want to see where scientist Bob proved it. Well, scientist Bob did prove it. Shungite does move those energies and help the plants grow and remove toxins. So that's just one of the minerals and or crystals that has an effect. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, the guy in Russia is crazy about shungite. He used to do this stuff called what was it? It was melted water. I was like, that is the most punk rock name for anything I've ever heard. That's so badass. But he was crazy about shungite. But I think that's really interesting. I think there's some, like, where a lot of people who are skeptical, right? Like, it's real easy to be a skeptic, right? Like, you just get to be critical, for the most part, right? It's like you were saying, the tinfoil hatties. Nobody's wearing a tinfoil hat because it looks cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're trying, they're doing their best. We all are. But like, the skeptic has no skin in the game, right? They can just shoot holes in everything, right? Like, it's like that. But for a long time, up until early 1900s, when we're talking about magic or we're talking about medicine or science, that's all one thing up until the past, 120 years, right? Like, scientists are just mystics from the future with lab coats on, basically, right? Like, it's not any different than whatever it was, except that people were playing with this game way more holistically, chemically and spiritually, not just one or the other, which we've tended to separate now more so than I think ever. So it's really interesting to talk about this. I love the idea of crystals and how they work, but what what do you say to those people, the science type, right? Like, who would maybe scoff or laugh about it, right? Like, you're praying to rocks or whatever.
I'd tell them put a piece of rose quartz in their pocket and talk to me in a month. It's gonna work. So,
and the science is there anyway. So then they need to do some reading and research anyway.
Well, on the shungite and stuff like that, like, what's being proven out is amazing. But what a piece of rose quartz will do to open your heart is pretty amazing as well. And I don't know if anybody's studying that empirically or not, but
you're 100% right. I know not everybody's going to see this on video, but I have a little jar of rose quartz right here with a little infinity symbol. It's sitting on my desk within reach, because just as been the same, it is a frequency. It affects that. Yeah, you can call it a chakra if you're certain understandings and terms. That's a thing. It does boost that energy field. I see people walking in here, again, have no idea about rocks and crystals. Oh, look at that pretty rock. Have no idea. Tears coming out of their eyes. They don't know that that's a thing. They didn't get a flyer at the front door saying cry when you touch the shiny object. It just turns on. These things happen. And I see it daily in this place.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see every day.
It is. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, just normalizes like miraculous events and just cements that as your ordinary timeline, which is pretty dope.
Yeah. Interesting environment.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, and I myself have historically and continue to be a critical thinker, right? Like, and I want to shoot holes in things, and I want to break things down and learn and understand. And I think that everybody can, but I think it's just really easy for people to dismiss things. But again, like to your point, Ben, it's like, try it out. Put, you know,
Well, and
put
that's, yeah, I mean, if they're not, if that's not part of the game they're playing, cool, man. You know, have at it. If you want to, if what you're, you know, the track you're on now has been working for you, who am I to, you know, try and stray off of it? But yeah,
I don't,
their own.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I learned better than that. Well, you know, a little bit ago.
I mean, I was real skeptical about all of it, and I still try and get that lens out every once in a while just to keep, you know, keep everything in check. But yeah, the more it's like anything else, right? A meditative practice or a yogic practice or anything like that. The more you work with something, the more you understand it, the more you can perceive. I do like the way you put that, Derek, all the time. It's not. It is a. I don't want to say it's a choice, because with some of these crystals, I mean, I'll put them in a bag and in a box, put that box in another box, because they're powerful, and you can overcharge a chakra. You know, you can get it spinning too fast, and that'll make your path pretty interesting. You know, you get your solar plexus spun up too much. Look out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, as far as just, it's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get.
You can definitely energy detox. So we get people coming in here that just are all heightened from, you know, the 3D life out there, and they're just flashing everywhere energetically, and they'll come in here and energy detox, and I can call it earthing and grounding. It goes by lots of terms, but you even out, and then you can, you know, that's when you start getting into those healing frequencies and you heal yourself. So yeah, certain rocks and stones can help you heal yourself. And like rose quartz, like Ben mentioned, things like that, and the shungite, they all affect different frequency or energy fields around you. So it's interesting. We're, you know, watching this too, at least from my perspective, because a lot of people don't know what they're getting into, and then I get to stand back and just watch it. So it's like a buffet saying, hey, you know, I don't tell them, hey, that's sweet or spicy. They'll just go to it or come at the color, or, you know, or we have computers set up where you can look in to see what this certain stone. But I'll always tell them too, I'll say, hey, don't just believe that. You need to, you know, get your own opinions of everything. So, and
if you're drawn to it, right? Like, I mean, that's higher self or intuition or whatever you want to call it. That's your body saying, we need more of that.
Oh yeah.
So.
I don't know how many chiropractors we have coming in here, which are / energy workers, coming in here doing just that, doing muscle testing, bringing in their clients, dropping rocks and stones and crystals in their hands and seeing certain body parts. And these clients have no idea what's going on. There's something to it. I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess people's legs are one shorter than the other. And long story short, it's the energy body, and they'll see them actually extend. So we get a lot of that in person here. So that's a lot of fun to see the 3D tie into the metaphysical. Yeah. It's not separate. It's all connected.
It is. Yeah. If people aren't familiar with muscle testing, you know, there's a number of muscle tests. And my friend, Dr. Gina Locke, man, she is awesome. Human design. And that's one of the things that she and I have worked on. You know, there's a couple of other things. And even in the Silva method, there is basically like just a way to trigger your body to basically relax, right? And so you want to be able to remember that, and whatever it is, I think it's you grasp your 2 fingers with your thumb or something like that. But it's just a reminder to your body to just, hey, relax, go to that alpha state, go to that relaxed state, because you can't really do anything if you're not relaxed. I think Maxwell Maltz said that, and I think that's true, right? Like we get swept up in whatever else, and we have to kind of figure out different ways to kind of like calm down in order to hear and be present. And yeah, it's interesting to think about as well, the crystals, the intuition, and just like you said, somebody walks in and they're just drawn to something. We do have predispositions for certain things, and all probably crave different elements to kind of like balance ourselves out. But I think balance and getting away from, like, people are coming in there for energetic healing, getting away from their phone and all the randomness, the chores, the day-to-day, the yelling, the screaming, whatever, the advertisements, the billboards, all that stuff, and just kind of like getting rid of that. It's huge. Even just for a short walk, a 10-minute walk, like leave your phone at home kind of thing. I find that to be the more I can get away from, even in just small bursts, the more I can kind of clear that energy, right? Like all the Instagram swipey, like whatever that is. Like, all right, I'm going to put my phone down and just walk around. But yeah, grounding, I think, is a big part of that. Just being close to ourselves and our own awareness. Yeah, I think that's really cool that you're doing those types of cleanses there. I feel like I've kind of intuitively done that over time just by going to the woods. It's like, all right, I got to go to the woods for a couple of days, like whatever it is, which I look like I basically live in the woods.
Yeah, you'll fit in with the Sasquatch around here.
Right? Yeah, you guys keep talking about Bigfoot, and it makes me laugh, I think about Bigfoot searching for himself, I have a friend in the chat who's asking, and if you know anybody, what is smoky quartz good for?
I haven't looked it up. We have all kinds of books that claim this, that, and the other, and that's what I would suggest on that one. I can intuitively look at that and get some insight. But in general speaking, no matter what rock and gem crystal you're looking for, what I suggest is look it up on a search engine. If you got that book, look at the big picture and see the general way, and then follow your gut instincts, no matter what, is what I would say. So listen to yourself. Is what it is. So, and there's no set thing. It's like saying, is this flavor ice cream or spice good for me? Well, that's spicy to some, not spicy to another. So listen to yourself is really what I would say.
That's good.
There's no set answer. Smoky quartz, though, is very programmable, of course, being crystalline, a crystal, of course. Water's a crystal. We're made of 80% water, depending on how dehydrated you are. And that's all programmable. So what it's good for is holding focus your intention on a frequency. It will hold that frequency in that crystal, where it's different than a stone like shungite, where shungite will continue to clear, and other rocks will have their set frequency. A crystal is reprogrammable. That's one of the differences with it. So it's not really a set thing. It's kind of like vanilla that you can then add your own intention to, your own toppings. Weird way of talking about it. But
no, that's great. I love that. For people who are just kind of starting out, is there an easy way to distinguish a crystal from a rock?
I mean, most of them are going to be, I got a couple sitting right here next to me. So those on video that can see this. So smoky quartz will be these more hazy or darker ones. And then there's clear quartz. But visually, just identifying, I'm sure there's different scientific methods. Ben may know some ways, I'm not sure, but there's not like a device you can just put on there. They're pretty identifiable when you first work with crystals, because a lot of them are, again, not everybody's watching video now, some are listening, but some of them are clear and see-through, like the quartzes and the citrines. But if it's a crystalline, then it's reprogrammable. And yeah, there's a piezoelectricity thing, meaning you put pressure on it, it'll give off a certain frequency and energy, which ties in the whole Bermuda Triangle, by the way. All the quartz caverns over there, think earth movement, putting pressure on stuff, it affects what's going on in the air. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Where minerals are a set frequency, they can even be measured. So I don't care if it's a malachite or something else. So it's just different ways. I don't know how much you've worked with crystals, Ben. Have you?
Yeah, I have quite a bit, mostly with just keep myself tuned up, but also doing healings on myself and other people a little bit. Smokies in particular are great at clearing, energy, um, and more of that kind of darker, shadowy kind of stuff, like your, um, the pile of dammits at your dad's house, right? They'll just kind of hoover that right up for you. But like you were saying, Derek, they're all programmable. Each of them kind of have their wheelhouse. So a good guidebook is indispensable if you start getting into the stuff.
And add on that, I
And
agree 100%.
Bill's a student for sure. I mean,
Oh, sure. Oh, that's true. I
but
can say you can pull color out of these crystals. I know you can't see much here when I'm shaking too fast. During sessions and when we do energy work, we'll come through here and check in this office straight, and rose quartz too, turn them completely white. The energies and frequent, and I wish I could explain it scientifically, but it's been a thing in here for years. I got all kinds of trinkets around me. We'll come in here periodically, pick one up, like this smoky literally has a spot the size of a dime. It was completely smoky, crystal clear now. Or different ones over here on my desk at a site that are doing the same thing. I mean, so I don't quite understand it completely myself, but it does happen.
And it kind of depends on where they're from too, on what frequency they're holding. Smokies are tough because some of them are irradiated to make them a little darker. So you got to be kind of careful on picking and choosing. But I left one at Bill's house basically like a guard dog because it was just this massive chunk of smoky out of Lake George, Colorado. Gorgeous piece. And I carried it in my truck for 6 or 8 months, and it was like the energy around it was just awesome. So when I went and saw Bill and Ellie, I was like, stick that on the porch.
That's a great idea. You driving it around wasn't random. I've got little pyramids here. You can't quite see little crystal pyramids that literally have been the Giza pyramid. They've been taken all over the place. Think downloading songs on a playlist, as you already know where I'm going with this one, Ben. That's exactly what you did, brother. You hooked them up, and etherically, because remember, you work out of time. So, one of you and or Bill or somebody involved knew you were going to be in those places, so you took it with you. That's great. Aware enough to do that.
Well, and I've had, I carry a smoky with me almost every day. So it's like they work like transceivers too for energy. So like it's connecting our fields, with intention, of course, but we can connect our energy fields together at that point. I was going to say, I don't know if we want to get too weird, but it's too late for that. So, Ellie care? Bill's wife and I have shared a past life. So we figured that out a while ago. And, it's interesting. We can both kind of feel each other thinking about like, oh, I miss Ellie, and she'll know that the telepathy's not like totally tuned in yet, but it's tickling there. So leaving stones was kind of part of the plan on that too, kind of heightening that, seeing if we can play with it a little more.
Oh, you will, absolutely. And of course, the scientists would say that's quantum entanglement, or we're all connected. Yep, it's all accurate, and you're right. When you think about your sister or mom or grandma, they're going to call you, that whole thing. And the more we know that's a thing and go, well, of course it is. Well, guess what? Just got 10 times stronger. And the same thing. Yeah, oh, that's absolutely. I can't even keep smoky quartz crystals. I don't get to use them myself because they'll turn clear. And same as citrine. So, and I can't explain that, but that's the thing with me, where it literally just pulls the color out of them. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it does do that. Even green stones, turn them clear and or different colors in here when I use them. They're called healerites or Washington serpentine. But anyway, yeah. And the more you do that, the more it affects the things around you. So the more you, again, just it's an understanding, is because I don't strike a special yoga pose. I don't need to climb a certain mountaintop before I do these things. And I'm not dissing those things.
Right.
But I'll tell you, you don't have to do them either. And you guys, we've been chatting for now an hour or so. I go about 100 miles an hour, as Bill knows. I don't ever find that little quiet spot in my head, but I can sure do the crazy woo-woo stuff. So I'm not dissing those things, but what I am saying is that you don't have to, and nobody here is saying you had to anyway, have to find that secret quiet spot in the meditation. If you can, fantastic. But nobody diss yourselves if you can't do that. If your head's just going 100 miles an hour, you don't have to do that, because I'm doing all kinds of unbelievable things in here, and it's not a limitation. So there's lots of ways of doing it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I love that. That's for me, and I have, like, Joe Roop was on the podcast, and he's into Hermetic magic, and that was his way to kind of come into things. And I was really interested in Hermetic magic when I started learning about spirituality and stuff. But when I found other books and realized, okay, well, we're the ritual. Kind of, we were talking about before about intention and how powerful that is. So the ritual is to cultivate that intention. The ritual doesn't do shit. The ritual is a sign or a symbol or a gesture, but it's really the practitioner that is doing. It's like you say, when you're working with people, it's like you heal yourself. I'm not doing anything. Right. This is you. This is not. It ain't all about, and I love that approach. I think that's the best approach, let's say, that I could think of personally. But yeah, I'm really passionate about that and how it's framed. I think that, going with it that way, it just makes more sense, as opposed to all this, I don't know, spectacle, kind of.
It's the energy behind it, yeah, that matters.
It's the intention, and that's really, I think, that intention is ignited when we're truly in agreement with ourselves.
I wouldn't say the ritual doesn't do shit.
Yeah, I'll step that back.
Well, I mean, because it's part of getting your frequency to the right point, right? Not just, I mean, chanting works like a charm, but really getting that mindset, getting everything vibrating at the same rate or level that you were the last time you did that thing, so it can, like we were saying earlier, the more you do it, the better you get. It's a memory thing in your muscle memory, in your energetic memory. You just kind of get up into that vibration. And I mean, yeah, everything you need to heal is already within you. But somebody like Derek, or I mean, I do it every once in a while too, is we're like, I don't know how you like to say it, but you're not doing nothing. I mean, you're setting the stage, you're holding the space, so and certainly offering, some protection as things start to open up too. So
yeah, you're right. There's a lot more going on. But I do like, as you guys understand and agree with, I'm sure that, you want to make sure the person's empowered and they know that they're doing it themselves, because you can call it a sugar cube and call it the placebo effect or a miracle or whatever. You're healing yourselves. But yeah, what we do is, people like us is, I'll just say we hold a lot of frequencies in space, and then so it's like playing a radio in a room. Somebody doesn't take away from the radio or the music when they walk into a room, or if 20 people walk in. It's all there. The music doesn't turn down. So same with frequency. When we have these certain realizations or aha moments in our lives, that adds on to our again, frequencies and energy field. And so maybe somebody's lacking in that. I like to call it a song in a playlist. Well, then I just play a love song, and that person gets realigned. It's not like they took anything from me. They don't need Derek's energy. That's not a thing. They just need to have their own energies maybe even out or adjusted, kind of thing. And the more they understand that, so Ben's right. We're doing a lot more, and I'm being vague for just this conversation as well, because we're getting midway in the pool. But we can all do these things, absolutely. And I wasn't trying to diss climbing those mountains or doing yoga. Great thing, and I'm a vegetarian myself. But I'm not saying you got to be these things. I'm just saying there's lots of directions you can go. There's not one path to get that understanding. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, would it be fair to then say that it's the focusing on the feeling and not really the method in which you would arrive at whatever state you're desiring, right?
I focus on the outcome, the end result. You're already healed.
So it doesn't matter if you meditate and you're quiet, or if you're like, going a million miles an hour. It's how can you get, how can you get up to that vibration? It's the feeling aspect, right? Is that fair?
Well, I mean, from my Ben, go ahead.
No, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, meditation can be so many different things too. So, I mean, yeah, sitting in lotus and doing mudras and adding chanting and breath work to that. Sure, that's all meditation. But so's taking a walk by the river, so's taking a long drive on an empty highway. I mean, it's
dancing.
It is
dancing.
So it is just getting into that, frequency, vibration, feeling, whatever you want to call it, where you're operating at a good level, be it calm or ecstatic.
The reason I ask is because I've been reading a lot of Neville Goddard lately, and he emphasizes feeling as well. But one of the methods that he talks about and he favors is approaching a state akin to sleep in order to meditate, like getting close to the sleepy state. So I guess the hypnagogic state.
Liminal.
And I've only been experimenting with it for a short time, but I like it because it sometimes turns into a nap, which isn't that bad either. So.
No, that's great. Yeah, didn't he like drink a glass of wine in the afternoon and like take a nap and do his visualization? That way, yeah, because I want to walk back the statement. I don't mean to take any disrespect or I don't mean to disrespect any ritual, right? Like they're there for a reason, and a lot of things can be perceived as a ritual. But it's really easy to get swept up in doing external things, whatever the exoteric is, and I really want to focus on what's here, what's driving, what that intention is. And that's really what matters. But even a businessman opening up their suitcase or putting on their watch or whatever, any of those things are, usable ritual.
We call it a practice, right? So it's like that for anything. And I don't want to keep repeating myself with the more you do it, the better you get. But it is, once that practice becomes habit, and it just keeps advancing. I mean, your life becomes the meditation, right? And magic, if that's or manifestation, whatever you want to call it, is just happening, and you're recognizing it and honoring it as you go. And then it's not a practice anymore, but it just is.
It's automatic.
It's how reality actually operates. Yeah.
Get out of your own way. Mm-hmm.
Which I still don't know how to do that.
It's still really hard to do.
I didn't say I mastered anything. I'm the master.
Yeah.
All right.
Every time I try, I turn around, there I am, I mean.
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day where I don't know if this is a phenomenon, but it seems almost this way to me where, say you're learning something and you basically go completely around yourself in order to come back to yourself in it, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys have had an experience like that where you on this, thing and you're like, okay, well, but you somehow ignore every part of the signals that you're being given, or you're somehow just completely unaware, unself-aware even, as you're kind of learning the thing until you kind of come back and make maybe a full circle. I don't know. It's a kind of weird.
No, the lesson will repeat until you learn it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and it is a spiral because, for me anyway, the lessons and healing, that I've done can just keep going. They can just keep getting deeper. Right. So at some point you hope you've come back around, but you look down and that's where you started. And so you're up a level, but you're still there. You're still, it's whatever it was, it's still kind of there. But then hopefully the next time around you go up a little bit more. That's how I've been trying to look at it anyway. Because yeah, it is. You can just be a dog chasing your own tail.
Yep, no doubt about that. That is always an option.
At this point, I'm just trying to heal from all the healing I was doing. You know, I mean,
oh, that's good. Yeah, I can relate to that.
I think we kind of talked about that in LA last year too. So
yeah, it's an interesting foray into all of this. Definitely learned a lot. The past couple of years have been crazy, like very fast in comparison to the rest of what I can remember, you know, as far as life goes.
Hang on for the ride and don't limit yourself, because we were talking earlier about getting into this kind of thing. I got into the we'll just call it the metaphysical, calling BS on it all, trying to prove it all wrong, and then realizing, oh no, come on. And we're talking about decades ago, getting in. I don't care if it's trying to guess what song's playing on the radio next. Well, let me tell you, if you do it, first of all, the numbers are astronomical, unless you're on repeats or something. It's not going to happen. You're not going to guess or do it multiple times. But when you do, or if you know somebody's going to call you or whatever the thing is, don't forget it. Realize it happened, and realize, again, expand your understanding. Oh, have that aha moment or oh shit moment. Oh shit, that can happen. And then stay open to it. And then guess what happens again? And then it gets on from there. And that's how I did it as well, because I started in the old coast to coast days way back then as well, testing this, that, and the other, the intuition things, and realizing that, again, having my aha moment going, well, wait a minute, that is a thing. And then if that's a thing, that means this, and then putting that puzzle together of our reality. And I'll tell you, when you get those aha moments, we'll call them those puzzle pieces, all of a sudden those segments in the puzzle analogy start to connect. And as you have those realizations, then the, again, air quotes, abilities turn on even more that you already had. And that's kind of how I went at it, just playing at it. Again, jumping in the deep end of the pool, realizing, calm down, and these are my deep sea diver days, you become buoyant. You stay on the surface. Don't panic. You don't need to swim. You don't even need to know how to swim. People don't know that. You don't need to know how to swim. Relax, chill out, breathe. Guess what will fill up with air? And, so in that same example can cross over to the metaphysical.
Sure. Like imagine being in the water and you're slapping at it like this. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to sink all the way straight to the bottom.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want to get into too much, but I've even had the black helicopter thing flying over, because remember, I was a correctional officer, prison guard here at Washington State. So flying over until I saw those, because I'd hear them on the shows, and literally I get to see one night. And I actually got some video of the thing. No sound, but that was a thing. So then once you have enough of those moments, then, okay. And then more stuff happens because you realize it.
Yeah, you start seeing it more.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as it's on your radar, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Sasquatch thing, my dad, I went quick over that one. He didn't even know. Remember, he's 85, I think. I just saw him a couple weeks ago. He didn't know the word Bigfoot or Sasquatch. He had 40-something acres, Northern California. He's an old-timer, a rock hound, a gold prospector like me, looking down at his feet, picking up rocks. He's an old guy. That's what he's doing. And he looks up and sees this 8-foot-tall hairy. He just goes on to describe it to me. And I'm like, Dad, you fool, that's a Bigfoot. And he's what I'm talking about. He's like, well, I don't know what to tell you, Derek. And it didn't do anything. They just looked at each other for about a minute. It leapt off and ran. And this is an ex-NSA, from years ago, of course, but just has he's just a no BS kind of guy. He's, he's in his late 80s. Took him 2 years to even tell his woo-woo son, me, I'll jokingly call myself, about it, because he just had no comprehension about it. He actually told my sister, and then she calls me, Derek, did Dad tell you? I'm like, no, the fool, I just saw him. And he didn't even mention. And then I called him on it, and he told me about it, and more stories from there. But he just didn't have the understanding. He didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So he didn't come at it like, I need to go see a Bigfoot on my property. He didn't know it was a thing. And he described it to me, the Sasquatch Bigfoot thing. And I'm like, Dad, you have no idea. And so I'm like, wow, that's just incredible. So, and that was just a few years ago in Fort Jones, for those that want to know. Fort Jones, California is where it went, but they're all over the place. You see them up here. I get sheriffs up here that tell me about them, that they come across them. So not that this is a Sasquatch show, but
no, I love that. Like I said, I think it's fascinating. And I mean, for people, it's so funny how we compartmentalize stuff and just sweep it away. I did it for years. And I wanted everything to match this objectivist, rationalist, materialist lens. And if it didn't make sense outside of that, well, it was bullshit somehow. But I had gone through so many experiences in the church and had couple different weird experiences, even as a young child, that made me question, that materialist objectivist, it has to, it was like, well, if that's true, then something I've had direct experiences with, that's not allowed. That's not in the model. You can't work with that. And I love objectivism. I love materialism. I love science and proving things and being able to, do our own experiments. I think we're all scientists, really, truly, and we're all experimenting. But it's just one part of the picture. It's not gonna. It didn't satiate my curiosity. It just made me shove down things that I was experiencing and never bring them up again, and basically, just like I say, compartmentalize and bury, right? Which I don't think is the healthy way. That's why I like they can put the UFOs on the news, and nobody cares. People are like,
you're correct.
Yeah, whatever. Disclosure, no big deal. That's crazy.
Seems like there's a few people that are curious enough, but it also, it's just been in the zeitgeist for so long, right? I mean, it's just like, well, there's another weird thing in the news. So, especially these days, I generally try to avoid all current events, but it's getting harder, and I'm staying with family right now, so it's just around, and I'm like, holy shit, who's writing the script these days? It's getting crazy.
It really is. I'll go on Twitter every once in a while just to peek.
So I mean, UFOs, that's the least of it these days.
True.
I mean,
I think I might have found the next the level up to the UFOs, since everybody's been kind of jaded on that because we've been programmed to expect UFOs. But I've been coming across these videos on the internet of objects being frozen in midair. The other day I saw a huge passenger airline. It was halfway off the ground, or coming in for a landing or something, but it was standing still in air. And I've seen videos of a broom doing that once, which was weird. And I think a cat or a bird and some other weird things, but it's just stuck in the air and not moving.
So the hologram's glitching.
Yeah, the Matrix is peeling apart or something.
It's about time.
Here. Yeah. Oh man. No, that's great. I mean, there's so many strange phenomenon. It's I can't explain this. There's so many things I can't. It's outrageous. And yeah, like you said, modern events, far beyond. It's I'm trying to write comedy, but I can't make it up.
Yeah.
What, the stuff that people are doing, they're doing comedy. I'm trying to write it, but they're doing it already. You know what I'm saying? They're ahead of mine.
I mean, it's wonderful, really. As far as the apocalypse being the unveiling, right? I mean, it's not getting much more obvious, at least. Well, it might need to. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know how anybody's keeping up.
How's anybody staying asleep? And that's what's got me. I mean,
that's a choice, right? I mean,
I know
not everybody's waking up.
No. Well, then you wouldn't have those that are awake and aware if you didn't have the opposite, the yin and yang. So I mean, I get it. It's all perspective, but yeah, it's mind blowing.
I'm looking for a sedative, really. I mean, I could use a nap, to be honest. I mean, just running the last couple of years on just trusting that the universe has got my back, and the kindness of others and chaos magic has been exhausting. So I'm trying to plug back in. It's just not working.
Yeah, it's been a rough few years, that's for sure. A roller coaster, man.
See, I wasn't paying attention. I was out in the woods. So
Good for you.
for most of it, I'd come in to shelter every once in a while, but yeah, I was checked out for the last couple of years. So it's a wonderful time to travel. Not very many people out there.
Yeah, I would believe so.
Cool time to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that we talked about Bigfoot, man. That's my favorite thing so far. I mean, because that's one of the big, like, I guess, conspiracy type things. But, people have a lot of different ideas and theories about that archetype, and even
and that's the way to look at it for me.
Yeah, like it reminds me of the story Iron John. Are you guys familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
So that there's like a hairy, like wild man that's captured by the king, and the son has to let him out of the cage. He has to steal the key from his mom, and he goes out with this like wild hairy man. I think in the story it's like maybe a redheaded wild man, but it's he's covered in hair, like he's just completely covered in hair, and the young boy is supposed to, like, once he runs off, he's like, well, I can't go back home. I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble for letting the wild man out. But goes on and he's out there like really coming to his own awareness of himself, right? Like it's and that archetype is definitely part of it. The wild man is what that myth is kind of based on. It's really about like having some sort of, I think it goes along with rites of passage, going out into the woods and being like a man, kind of thing, like and having your own independence kind of thing is really where that derives from. But I can see that as an archetype in that way, because it is like that's that wild essence, pure animal, kind of.
And when there's a spotting, it's usually out there away from civilization. It's on the frontier, so to speak. So, I mean, there have been legends about, Sasquatch before we knew that word, and it was wild man was something they were called, so. And I think even, I'm getting mythologies mixed up. So,
do they have any? Maybe Derek, you could answer this. As far as a Bigfoot, like, is there an etheric, like are they interdimensional? Like, is there another aspect outside of the physical body that people keep running into? Because I've heard of stories of disappearing Bigfoots or whatnot. Like, is that a thing that you've experienced with, or?
You must be intuitive, Bill, because literally I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
I mean, how deep in the deep end of the pool do we want to get? Because
get a little deep. We're coming
they're
up
a group of entities. Yeah, they're not, again, just limited to a physical, big, hairy family group living out there in the woods. There's the physical aspect, and I didn't know I was getting into it. Because remember, I tried to call BS on the Bigfoot thing too. Not a thing. And I haven't gotten into, I don't know how many more experiences I've had. But now they come in, again, we can say etherically. They're communicators, they're healers, but they're also, I'll tell you, they're like humans. So, meaning some are aware they're intuitive, some are not, some are more adept than others. So there's the whole gambit of all of that. But no, they're a people, not an animal group, and they're very aware because they're like, I'm gonna make fun of it, stupid psychic. It freaked me out, and I mean this in a good way, on how they were communicating with me. So literally, I got quick stories at some event. I do lots of things. A person walked up to me, and because I'm in some societies, they call people like me a seer. I get to actually see the stuff. It depends on the state and what's going on. One time, I don't know, it was about a 12-foot Sasquatch walked up etherically, as I'll term it, so spirit form, ghost form, you can call it, behind this person, and then I mention it to him, and it goes on from there, and then they started communicating. That's when I first experienced it. Was, as it's happened now, just ringing the heck out of my ears. First got into that, and it's all frequencies and energy. So this was like a shaman individual in front of me. I didn't know who he was. I was just opening up. Somebody sent him over to talk to Crazy Derek, and I'm just going to make fun of it and myself. But then we had that whole and countless circumstances like that too. But there are people they've come in, help people heal themselves. They come in and hold a certain, again, frequency or energy, and then I get to see the energies move around that human, and they start healing themselves. So it's like a team effort, is how I see it. And Ben, I don't know if you've had similar experiences. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, that's initially what I saw in Montana dematerialized.
Oh, I didn't even get into that. Yes, I've seen that.
It didn't just run away, right?
Yeah.
And interdimensional, that's, I don't know. There's a lot of language I get stuck on. I'm a bit of a word nerd, but I mean, they exist at a frequency we can't perceive.
It's not a
maybe
way.
Is the best way to put it. Unless they want to be perceived. Or you are, like Derek, and can just perceive at whim. I'm always made aware of their presence. I don't see as well. I get flashes and glimpses here and there, but my vision is still something I need to work on.
Oh, you don't. Maybe everybody thinks, oh, I want to see like Derek. No, you don't.
No, I've been putting it off. I know what to do. I'm just not doing it because I don't want to live in Roger Rabbit world.
There you go.
No, but it's also not really. I mean, it is sort of a choice, but it's coming whether I like it or not. I mean, it is just a sensory perception that we have access to. So I've developed some inadvertently, some intentionally, but a lot of the other, what is normally considered extrasensory perception, right? And that's where you're 100%. It's not extra. It's just something you need to get access to and practice with. And, it's just the paranormal is now just our normal as far as I can tell.
I'll tell you, when you, like you're saying, and I can see you're what they call aura or biofield, when people have certain realizations, they access different frequencies. So it's like we're an FM radio and our aura is the antenna. Play with the aura antenna, your understandings, you're going to pick up on more of what's already there. Because, of course, turn on the radio here, I got country, blues, rap, I got everything all here, all the time. Dimension is not you didn't say it anyway, but for those listening, it's not an away place or something you have to achieve. It's something you realize and perceive, but so it's all around you all the time. So going back to what Bill, you were saying, oh yeah, I've seen Sasquatch materialize, and I'm making fun of it, hold space or form in the physical 3D where they can knock on wood and do their yoops and yells, all that kind of stuff. And then I've seen them straight up disappear and go invisible. That's a thing as well. And you make up terms for it, phase out, this, that. They changed I could still see them anyway. I'm pointing over here because I can see the visual over here on my wall. I could still see the Sasquatch when they went invisible to my human buddies around me. Oh, no, they didn't. They went, all I can say is they changed their feelings. Their physical body phased out, but I can still see their energy body or ghost-like form. And they're moving. So that is really loud. And when they do things like that, that happens. And I wish I could explain it more scientifically. And even right now, I'm getting dinged out because I'm tuning in and perceiving these things, and I can't explain that either.
Yeah, it's a frequency switch.
It is. It really is.
It's the easiest way for me to understand it and explain it.
That's what some of our we can call them guides or past loved ones, whatever you want to say, can bilocate things for us. Your keys, your this, that. That's a thing too. We all know that. And it can be moved. So yeah, Bill, they can bilocate. They can do all sorts of things. Once you have the realization, you're not physical, because you're not. Actually, if you get on the physics level, you're an accumulation of photons, light particles with this much space between each. I'm not going to keep boring everybody with that, because I'm sure you already know. Just have that realization, understanding, and then you're not limited by space and time. You can do that. I did in the military, the whole astral projection, the remote perceiving, because you don't have to just remote view. That's a limiting thing, let me tell you. What fun is that? Oh no, you can remote perceive, and I've done that to where other entities in the room see me, and I look like a ghost to them. I mean, this reality is so crazy. Have fun with it. Don't limit yourself.
Yeah, It's way cooler when you can taste it, not just see it.
Oh, I did that by smelling. I called it remote smelly during some class I did sometime. I saw some guy, long story short, driving crazy in the mountains. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to astral project, look in there and get close, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, what is he doing? I could smell the alcohol, the actual type he was drinking, kind of thing. I didn't know that was a thing. So I made up some funny name for it. I'm sure there's a fancy name for it. But
yeah, I don't know what the smell one is either, but
yeah, Claire's sentience.
It's a weird one.
Tried to tell me, but again, I didn't even know it was a thing. I knew I could perceive, and I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to get too close to this. I just knew something was up. My spider senses were on, so I did that. And all of a sudden, I'm smelling the Jim Beam Jack, whatever the heck it was, and I'm like, okay. And I verified it later because he pulled in down to get more, and you see him throwing his bottle. I'm like, okay, stay clear of that guy. And then, it's about doing the whole woo-woo thing, but use that as some of your input in this life to pay attention. Now, if all of a sudden your spider sense is saying that guy's drinking and driving, probably is. So pay attention to that stuff. Did you ask that, Bill, for, I know we went on, somehow we got into remote perceiving, but the Sasquatch bilocating thing, yeah. Did you have any experiences in that yourself?
No, not personally. I did get an invitation. I went to CryptidCon in 2019, and there was, I don't know if he was a guest speaker or something, but he was offering to take people out. This is in Lexington, Kentucky, right? So he wanted to take people that came to this conference. It's at a hotel off the highway, and he wanted to take us all out into the middle of the woods, the middle of the night, and look for Sasquatch. I did get that offer. So, but no, I didn't take that up. I heard David Paulides speak actually at this conference, and he was saying how that they had found a hair sample from a Bigfoot and had it analyzed, and I guess the results came back as it was half human and half something else. Oh, I didn't see that you had that. Okay.
I have a piece of it right here in my desk.
Oh, okay. So you know about that. But
it was just sent to me a week ago. How random is that? And it's just in down in
there. Wild, dude.
I'm not kidding. Yeah. I got a whole microscope. I'm gonna put it under and play with it. I know I showed it quickly, but most people are listening to this probably. But no, there's a hair sample right there. Yeah, you wouldn't believe the stuff that comes through this place that they because I'm a science guy. Science tells you about that much. It's just a language, but I've got all the trinkets from microscopes to energy devices, and all this to Bill. And I'm that geek who will get it out and try and show it on the 10% physical too. And yeah, stand in front of some guy under a high def video microscope, live video, zap it with my crazy woo-woo ability. Well, not so crazy when you see the stuff happening. Because again, I come at this bluntly. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. It is what it is, believe it or not. And I'll do those kind of things because I'm not here to prove it. Again, just to show and then have fun with it and explore.
No, I absolutely. Well, it's so funny. I think even just recently I will see people try to get me to defend myself, and I'm not even claiming shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
I don't have to do that. Nobody needs to do that. But I love that. I love that you're open enough and willing enough to challenge everything that you're perceiving too. You're trying to scientifically explain it, understand it in as many different ways as possible. It's not back to me talking earlier at the beginning of the show where I'm like, well, yeah, it's real easy to be a skeptic and just shoot holes in things, right? Like anybody can do that, and you don't have any skin in the game. There's nothing that you are beholden to at that point, and it's good to challenge. It's good to get different perspectives and try things and experiment, and I love that. I think it's beautiful what you're doing, and I love the way that you explain it, both of you guys, all you guys, just the way that we can talk about this stuff. Because like we're four pretty masculine dudes talking about some pretty fairy shit, like some weird, crazy, out there, quantum bananas kind of things, right? And so I love it that we can be willing to talk about it and also come up with our own ways, definitions, and practical ways to explain it and understand it. That's beautiful to me. Yeah. So Snake is asking you the website or channel. Derek's mysticalwares.com. Check that out, Snake, for sure. He's got a shop of craziness up in Washington.
There's a lot of science, because remember, I'm a science guy. So when I talk about shungite or whatnot, you'll find a shungite FAQ page on our website where I'll get into not just talking to you about the studies, but actually republish them and put them up there and show you that it's not just physical, it's metaphysical stuff. So so I like to get into that aspect of things as well. So there's a lot going on the website, because I'm all about education and expanding our understanding. I mean, then life's a whole lot more fun.
It really is, and I love that. I try to type that into the chat too.
For me too, the deeper you dig into this stuff and the older you find it to be, you know, people messing with these energies, it's probably putting it way too light, you know, but Elizabethan era magicians, or go back even farther and dig into some of the ancient shamanic practices, you know, it's always been with us. We just somehow forgot.
And it's all energy work.
Yeah.
Regardless of the story.
So gaining the access is, I don't think it's ever been easier to initiate yourself into these mysteries.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, they found me. I wasn't looking for any of this stuff. You know, my awakening experience was completely spontaneous and eye-opening, is putting it mildly, right? But I was a very nuts and bolts, you know, fire's hot and rocks are hard kind of dude, and they still are, but not as much. You know, there's a lot more going on out there, and I've never experienced anything more real. I'm still trying to figure out how to talk about it and how to describe it, but it's makes life so much more not just enjoyable, but like there's so much more to it. There's more to go find. The frontier is not gone by any. There's still a big jungle out there to explore.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I feel like the enemy is like, don't look. Just there's nothing more to see here. Just go. Like, don't explore. Like the Jim Carrey movie where they're like, no, everything's already been explored. It's like no, no.
Yeah.
As outdoors people too, and guides, like I know and like you could live your whole life in Yellowstone, for example, and you would never see everything that that is available there. So and it's exactly the same.
And we're just talking physical. 90% is metaphysical.
Right. Exactly.
That's when
It is a lot. It's a lot. But I mean, I think that's so cool too. I mean, so I very similarly, and I think we all had similar experiences where we're like, no, this is how things are. And it's like this. And then slowly, but maybe not so slowly, but eventually we were like, this map is not comprehensive enough for me. It's not telling me everything I need to know, for me, particularly with emotional stuff, which is energetic or vibrational, as we talk about in more hermetic kind of way, but it's the same thing. It's emotional. It's like we're making emotional contracts with the world all the time. We're communicating to it, telling it what we want or don't want. And
and you've spent a lot of time on a river, right? I mean, we share that experience as raft guides, but I mean, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had it on more than one occasion, more than one river, where all of a sudden you just start hearing music and you're like, wait, was that music or was that water going over a rock? And the more you do sit there and listen for that, it is just opening up those horizons even more. So.
Yeah, I've heard what you're talking about, Ben. Absolutely. In different areas and things too. It's phenomenal. And you can absolutely hear the music. And you can go past that. And of course, you're opening up, tuning in, just like going in between the stations on your radio, you're going to hear a little country, a little rap, more. There's always more out there. It's a lot of fun too.
You can't get lost. You gotta be careful, like you were saying. You gotta have the protection in place when you start surfing bigger waves. But yeah, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of communicating, I know we only have 15 minutes here, but I wanted to kind of touch on the topic of light language because I think I see Tyel in the chat, which, Derek, I think you know Tyel?
Oh, he's a great friend of mine. I don't have
Yeah.
chat up, unfortunately.
Okay.
But Ty and Tyel is, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So light language, I saw you and him did a class together at Mystical Wares. It was wonderful. It's, I think, on YouTube to find. But you had described light language to me as just instead of, because a lot of people when they think of this, it's automatically they go to the Enochian like alphabet or whatever John Dee came up with, right? But I appreciated the perspective that you gave me in that it's a language of light. It's not necessarily like it has to be like an actual physical like language with structure and letters and stuff. So
Yeah.
that can be different for different people, right?
It can. So it's a language of light, or light is a frequency. So meaning, yes, you can, I'll just say, speak or interpret light language vocally. You can do it with hand movements. You can do it with dance. You can do it no movement at all, because light is a frequency, and realizing that. So it's a way of communicating or tuning in. And for some reason, some people moving certain ways or vocalizing certain sounds will help them tune into that. But I would also expand, and nobody's saying it here either, don't get stuck on thinking, well, this hand movement or this vocalization or dance move means A, B, and C, or this word. It's the energies behind it and the intention. So it's light language, as it's termed, is so I'm going to say it, dimensional. Again, that's not a far away thing, but it covers a lot of frequencies. So somebody watching it can feel something from it. Some will see something. Like my friend Tyel, I get incredible. He basically tunes, again, the limited language we have when he does his light language work, tunes frequencies in the environment, which heightens, kind of turns from my sight into HD, just to give you some kind of visualization. I can't explain it more than that. I wish I had a scientist with a big device that could say, this is what's going on. But I'll tell you, when people like him do his thing, it brings in a lot of energy and or frequencies. And then because I perceive the metaphysical visually as well, I get more channels. So that's the thing too. But so lots of ways of doing it.
So then what with the alphabet, the characters that a lot of people will like draw or, you know,
Yeah, I write a light language. I channel in written light language.
That's the thing too, just as accurate. And everybody can have their own. It makes no difference. Yeah. So an A isn't an A or what. Like Ben, you're gonna have your own language.
It's free drawing, if you will, or automatic drawing when I do it. The best way it was described to me is it's an ancient language from the future. And it's only your soul understands it. So it's soul speak.
And love that.
Yeah, and the more
writing in 2D, but the energy and the more of it's in the metaphysical. So you're actually writing an energy.
Mm-hmm.
I can perceive that when people do it, if it's a hand movement or something like you writing, because I've seen individuals do that. And I don't know how to explain it, but there's a depth to it. It's just like crop circles. That's not a flat 2D thing.
It's code. It's recoding.
There you go. And there's all these frequencies within that. Yeah. So you can package it however you want, but it's behind it.
People sing it is glorious to sit through. It's a sound healing.
It is.
The spoken word is the same way. If I hear people speaking it too much these days, it's like I'm at church, man. I got responses and I start jiving around. I mean, it's glossolalia, right? It's just speaking in tongues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask. Like, how does that relate to, the old Pentecostal where I'm from, and just speaking in tongues, or it's basically gibberish. There's a ritual with that where you get baptized in the Holy Spirit, and then you say some words. But I mean, it is a very distinct like way of speaking. And
wouldn't Pentecostal say you're full of Spirit at the time?
Filled with the Spirit. That's right.
Yeah,
drunk on the Holy Ghost.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, the meat suit doesn't know how to process it, so it can come out kind of weird at times and stuttered and chattered, and it's not.
And it can physically affect you.
Yeah, unless you really focus in and practice with it, it can. It's a energetic channel when you get in it, man.
I mean,
it can jar you.
Some of these ladies and other people too, pastors of church and stuff, they sit in their closets and just talk in tongues for 8 hours a day. And I don't know if that had. I don't know.
There was a stage in their life or something, but
yeah. I mean, that's a lot. But I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, this is interesting here, where Snake is saying, and maybe he's not referring to this, but I'm assuming that he might be. I call it scripting, right? Like, it could be, right? Like, and so there's a lot of different theories.
No, absolutely.
About this, right? And even in the church, where it's like you're praying God's will, or it's your soul praying directly to God for you on your behalf, or
when I started experimenting with it, because it was a channel that opened up on its own, and it kind of freaked me out, and I didn't trust it right away, and I just kept putting it in a sketchbook, and those became bigger, and I posted some of it on Instagram.
That was cool.
But damn if some of it didn't play out, like when I was done and the overall feeling I got from it afterwards, or one of them looked like the damn yellow brick road, right, from the Wizard of Oz. And not 3 months ago, I just happened to drive through the town that has the Wizard of Oz Museum in Kansas, and I was on Yellow Brick Road Boulevard, right? And I'm like, what was that? I wrote that into my script. Holy shit. I was just on a weird road trip having fun. And then there I am, Western Kansas.
I didn't know that was a thing, a place. Not Kansas, but Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, it was wild.
And this makes a lot of sense. Tyel says in the chat, tongues is a flavor of light language. Light is data. So churches pull from a certain database of data. And that makes a lot of sense. It's like we're all like tapping into this thing, and it's like, it's weird because like you go to Church of God of Prophecy and you have to be inspired, and then somebody will stand up and they'll say something in tongues, and then somebody else will stand up and just a second later and they'll interpret it for the church. Wow. And you go to a different church and people are just doing it sporadically. And just like all the other denominations, whether it be Baptist or whatever, there's a certain way you're supposed to do it, and you only do it that way, right? Which is why I love Derek's approach, and everyone here is where it's like, do what works for you. Do what works for you.
Don't follow a recipe,
right?
Modify your recipe,
or play with the recipe too, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I'm not trying to disrespect.
You'll know what you're going to get, right? If you're following the recipe, you know exactly what you're going to get. If you're playing jazz, sometimes there's a bad note, so just be ready for it.
Dude, yeah. Just what do they say about jazz? They say if you're playing and you play the wrong note, just play it twice and call it.
Right.
keep riffing.
There's no wrong.
Yeah. There's really not. Oh, man. Yes, this has been kind of like a Mystic Men's support group. That's an excellent observation in the chat. And I've really enjoyed it. And I hope you guys all out there have too. I really appreciate all you guys for kicking it with us live on the stream. It's awesome. It's so fun to look down and see some comments. I try not to get too distracted, but it can happen, to be fair. And I really appreciate all you guys for being here and hanging out. This has been killer. We can maybe go around and just talk about what you're doing and where people can find you and all that good stuff. And if anybody in the chat has a question or wants to find anything, we can make that available to you. We'll start with you, Derek.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, like we talked about, I can be found more at mysticalwares.com. I guess the thing I'd want to emphasize in my moment here is I invented what's called the Shungite beehives, because bees are important, as I mentioned. I think maybe we were off air, I'm not sure, but I'm an organic beekeeper as well. So we're all about bees and energy, and it does have a huge effect on them. So we have a lot of information on Shungite beehives, and we gift Shungite for free to anybody who wants to try it for their beehives. because we're about love and energy, not money. So, and once you get to try it on your bees, you'll see it has an effect, and yourself as well. So there's just lots of information and things we do at mysticalwares.com. So if you're wanting to expand your understanding, we get into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'll put a link to Mystical Wares in the chat. You guys go check it out. Lots of really amazing stuff. I actually have some of your stuff here as well.
The
really, yeah, it's super cool. And I love this stuff. The honey was fantastic too. It is incredible. So thank you. And guys, go check that out. Bill, let them know what you're working on and where people can check you out.
Yeah, currently you can find me at 13 Questions Podcast on Instagram, as well as our website is 13questionspodcast.com. And this is a show in which our capstone question is, what does it mean to be a man in today's world? And that is a loaded question on purpose, because it is always interesting to see where the guest takes it, as the man as a gender or man as a human, right? So, as the Ferengis like to say. Bad joke there. But that is the current project. And I do have another one in the works, sponsored by Mystical Wares, and that is coming spring of 2023. So stay tuned on Owen's channel for more information on that, for sure, because he will be a part of this project, as well as Ben and obviously Derek and my current co-host Adam Loyal. So more on that to come in the future. So follow us all on the socials, and you will stay updated on that as it progresses.
I love it. Yeah, check it out. It's a great show. They've had some incredible guests on there. And just really, really cool. Love what you're doing. Excited about what's coming as well. And Ben, if you want to let people know where they can hunt you down.
I mainly just hang out on Instagram, if any social media platform. Star Pilgrim 777. But I don't have anything to promote or market or anything. I'm just the dude doing magic every day. So, but if anybody wants to talk about weird shit, I'm always down for that. Or you got, a ghost in the attic, I can help out with that too. So hit me up.
And I will recommend, we need to do like a mystical Yelp kind of thing. I would give you 5 stars on that, man. It was impressive. It was cool stuff. And I learned a lot from working with you. And I really appreciate being able to hang out with all you guys. It's really cool to have a network like this. What did he call it? The mystical men's support group or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we all have to have it. Yeah, we all need it, dude. We gotta have it. Yeah, in fact, I think I'm on like kind of a mystical men's support group on Telegram. So I guess that reminds me, you guys can hang out. We're on Telegram. Blue Collar Mystics. There's a link on our website and stuff like that. You're welcome to just hit me up too. I'm very responsive. And I do also tend to hang out. I've been on Instagram at Bootsy Greenwood. Also, the podcast is there, Blue Collar Mystics. And we are on Rockfin now, live streaming, and several other platforms. So check that out, and more to come on Bill's new endeavor as well. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. Great stuff. We're all connected in this weird ethereal soup. And we'll keep riding it out, even though the end's already happened. How about it? Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yep, appreciate it. Had a great time.
Thanks, everybody.